There's a number that does something strange to people. Not $1 million, not even close. The number is $100,000. And the moment someone crosses it for the first time, something shifts inside them that has nothing to do with the money itself. Most people assume the change is about lifestyle, a nicer car, a better apartment, maybe a few more dinners out. But that's not what actually happens. The real change is invisible. It happens inside your head. And once you understand what it is, you'll never look at money the same way again. Let's start with something that sounds too simple to be important. Before someone hits $100,000, they think of money as something they earn. After they hit $100,000, they start thinking of money as something that works. That one mental shift separates two completely different categories of people, and most people never even notice it happening. Think about two people, both in their late 20s, both earning similar salaries. One of them, call him David, has been saving consistently for 4 years. He just crossed $100,000 in his investment account last Tuesday. He didn't celebrate, he didn't buy anything, but something quietly changed in how he sees his paycheck, his time, and his next decision. The other person, call her Nina, is smart, hardworking, and earns even more than David, but she's never quite gotten past $30,000 saved. She's not irresponsible, she just hasn't felt the shift yet. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The difference between David and Nina isn't discipline, it's momentum. And momentum changes your brain. Here's what actually happens at $100,000 that nobody talks about. At $10,000 saved, losing $1,000 feels catastrophic. That's 10% of everything you have. At $100,000, losing $1,000 still stings, but it no longer threatens your foundation. Your nervous system registers that differently. Researchers who study financial decision-making have found that people with a solid financial base make measurably calmer, more rational choices. Not because they're smarter, but because they're no longer operating from a place of financial fear. Fear doesn't just feel bad, it literally narrowed your thinking. It pushes your brain towards short-term survival mode. When you're always one bad month away from falling behind, your brain is wired to grab certainty right now, even if waiting would pay off 10 times more later. $100,000 doesn't eliminate that fear overnight, but it quiets it enough that your brain starts operating on a longer timeline. And a longer timeline is where all the serious wealth gets built. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When David looks at his $100,000 sitting in a market index fund earning roughly 10% on average, he starts doing the math differently. He realizes that in a good year, the market alone could add $10,000 to his account without him doing a single thing. That's more than $800 a month in passive growth. He didn't work for that. It just happened because the money was there. And the moment that clicks, the way he thinks about spending changes completely. That $60 dinner out, his brain starts automatically translating it into its future value. Not obsessively, not in an anxious way, but there's now a quiet awareness that wasn't there before. Money starts feeling like a resource with two lives, what it buys today and what it becomes tomorrow. Nina doesn't have that reference point yet. She spends the same $60 and it just feels like $60. She's not doing anything wrong, her brain simply doesn't have the lived experience of watching compound growth actually happen to her own money over time. And that is the real gap. Not income, not habits, it's that experiential data point that rewires everything. This is the part most finance content completely skips over. The psychological shift at $100,000 isn't just about feeling safer, it actually changes what opportunities you can see. Before that threshold, when someone pitches you a long-term investment, your brain quietly asks, but what if I need that money next year? That single question kills more long-term financial growth than almost anything else. After $100,000, that question gets quieter because you have a cushion, you have runway, and when you have runway, you can afford to think in years instead of months. And that is not a personality type, that is not a discipline level, that is a structural advantage that money creates inside your own thinking. Here's the other shift that happens, and this one surprises people. Before $100,000, most people are trying to earn their way to wealth, more hours, better job, side income. And that approach is not wrong, but after $100,000, the smartest people start shifting focus towards keeping and growing what they already have. Not in a fearful way, in a strategic way. They start paying attention to investment fees, tax efficiency, and the cost of bad decisions. Because at $100,000, a 2% annual fee on your investments costs you $2,000 a year. Compounded over 20 years, that same fee gap could quietly erase $50,000 to $80,000 in lost growth. At $5,000 in savings, that math doesn't feel real. At $100,000, it suddenly does. And that awareness compounds just like the money does. There is a real risk that comes with this shift, though, and most people don't see it until it's too late. When your brain rewires itself around a larger number, the anchor for what feels like enough quietly moves. What once felt like a life changing amount starts feeling ordinary. This is called financial habituation, and it's the mechanism behind why some people go from struggling to comfortable and then right back to struggling again at a higher income level. Lifestyle inflates to match the new baseline, savings percentage stays stuck where it was. The same brain that rewired for success can rewire for complacency if you stop paying attention. David's biggest risk after crossing $100,000 is not a market crash. It's getting comfortable, slowing down his contributions, convincing himself he's already made it when he's really just standing at the starting line of the most interesting part. The people who keep going past $100,000 to $250,000 to $500,000 and beyond, they're not doing something radically different. They just never let the number they're sitting on become their ceiling. They kept the habits they had before the threshold and added the new perspective that comes after it. That combination is what actually builds lasting wealth. So, what does all of this mean for you right now? If you haven't hit $100,000 yet, the goal isn't just to save more. The goal is to understand why that number changes how you think so you can start borrowing that mindset today. Look at your savings not as a backup plan, but as a working asset with a job to do. Start learning to see the future cost of every present decision, not obsessively, just with your eyes open. If you're already past $100,000, the question isn't where to invest next. The question is whether your thinking has actually kept up with your balance. Because the number can change without the mindset changing, and the mindset is the thing that does the real work. Money doesn't build wealth on its own. Compound growth doesn't either. The real engine is a brain trained to think in decades, not months, and to treat every dollar as something with two lives. Once you see it that way, you can't unsee it. And if you're serious about understanding how money really works at every stage of building it, do not skip my next video. It is going to challenge something most people believe about wealth that turns out to be completely backwards. It's already up. Go watch it.